Alright guys, you absolutely smashed the support on the transfer video earlier in the week, so we're back today with another instalment and a bunch more transfer rumours to go over. Obviously this is a very busy time in the Championship at the moment. We've got a lot of games coming up in the month of December and clubs will start to think about what their plans are for the January window. As always, if you see any other rumours that we don't mention today, make sure to get them in the comments down below and we'll take a look at them next time. But without any further ado, let's jump straight in. So on last time's video, we spoke about Ryan Hardy and him potentially looking to leave Wrexham in January, especially if his minutes don't improve in the next month or so. Well, since that point, we've had a bit of a development on this story and a couple of Championship clubs have been linked with the striker, with both Hull City and Blackburn Rovers supposedly interested. Now, if there is concrete evidence behind this rumour and Hardy will be made available for a move in January, I'd expect at least a quarter of the Championship to be interested in him. I think he's a very good striker. He's only not getting minutes at Wrexham right now because they're pretty stacked in that forward line. You go back to the last season he had in the Championship though, with a struggling Plymouth side, he still hit double figures. The year before that he scored 12 and got 4 assists. He's a good player at this level, can run in behind. I'd expect a lot of Championship clubs to be interested. Wouldn't be surprised if my side North then threw our hat in the ring, with it looking unlikely that we'll be getting Tom Cannon now in the January window because he's picked up at Sheffield United. Hardy's been someone we've looked at a few times in the past. The link to Hull's an interesting one because you'd think with the problems that they've had so far this season, they'd more be prioritising plays in defence and in midfield, but they're still open to strengthening their attack. I think especially if Wrexham were willing to sanction a loan deal in January, yeah, you're going to get a lot of clubs all over this one. Now, speaking of Hull City, Brandon Williams is someone who could potentially be departing the club in January. Either he could be released, could be sold, could be sanctioned for a loan deal. But we basically had Hull manager Sergei Akirovic coming out to the press the other day and basically saying that Williams has struggled to get up to the required fitness levels for Championship football and as a result has not really had much of a look in this season at Hull. He's only played 5 minutes of Championship football as of recording. Now, we mentioned when Hull picked up Williams over the summer, it was a fairly low risk sort of deal with the potential benefits being quite worth it. So you could see why Hull took the gamble on him over the summer, but obviously someone who's had quite a bit of time out of the game, has shown previously that he can be a very talented player at this level and there's no doubt that he's got the ability to thrive. It's just a question of whether or not he can get his fitness back up to those required standards. A bit more news regarding Hull City, and Hull fans have been made aware that loanee striker Joe Geldhart does have a recall clause in his contract, so if Leeds United should choose in the January window, they could pull him out of that loan spell, and if they do think he's up to Premier League standards, could look to integrate him into the squad. However, reporters from the Hull City end have claimed that that does seem quite unlikely at this stage, but it is a possibility. Obviously, he's been absolutely thriving in the Championship over these past few months especially. He's been so prolific. In total, in 18 matches, he scored 9 goals and got 2 assists. I think Hull fans are hopeful of eventually getting him on a permanent basis, but I think ultimately that will all depend on Leeds, what league they're playing in next season. But going off the latest reports, Leeds don't have plans to recall him in January, but obviously dependent on injuries, form, things like that, it could change. We've had reports from Scotland coming out that Aberdeen have shown an interest in Preston North End defender Liam Lindsay. Now, he's still got a year and a half left to run on his contract at Deepdale. He's under contract until the summer of 2027. I do think this is a deal that North End could consider in January if the money is right. I mean, it's a tricky one with Lindsay because he's been at the club for so long, but when our entire squad is fully fit, he doesn't get into our strongest 11. That central centre-half spot is Lewis Gibson's, but obviously he's out injured at the moment, meaning that Liam Lindsay has played quite a bit of football of late. I think Lindsay is a solid head-it, kick-it sort of defender, but he does have a mistake in him, and age 30, this would probably be the last chance that North End have to get a bit of cash back for him. Obviously, it goes without saying that if we were to sanction a deal like that in the January window, we'd have to go out ourselves and sign another centre-half, but potentially getting in a younger replacement if there's someone out there on the market, something I could see the club considering, but only if the money was right and if Aberdeen do come in with an official offer, that is. Former Millwall and Middlesbrough forward Duncan Watmore is continuing to train with Sheffield Wednesday, although according to the latest reports, getting an actual deal at Wednesday seems unlikely for the 31-year-old at this point in time, which has opened the door for a few League One clubs to register an interest in him. Most recently, Rotherham United have been quite heavily linked with the forward, so so we'll see if that goes anywhere. Watford winger Rocco Vata is attracting plenty of interest ahead of the January window. You've got clubs from around Europe who are supposedly interested, Crystal Palace in the Premier League as well, who have also been linked over the past week or so. Now, he's an interesting one. He's certainly a player who Watford would be expected to flip for a sizable profit, whether he leaves in January next summer or any time after that. He's only 20 years old, and according to reports, Watford value him at around about £20 million. Whether or not someone would pay that for him in January, we'll have to wait and see, but there's definitely interest there. Now, frustratingly for the young winger, we've not seen that much of him this season. He's been out with a hamstring injury since early November. As a result, has only played 455 minutes of Championship football this season, but has looked bright in those appearances. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists. Still bit of a raw player, but you can certainly tell there is a very talented, skillful young player in there with plenty of potential. Watford do have a good track record with developing those kinds of players and then eventually selling them on for a profit, which looks to be the case here. Portuguese winger Caio Varela is a target for Coventry in the January transfer window. That's according to reports, and some have already claimed that Coventry have gone in with an opening bid in hopes of getting a deal tied up early on in the January window. Now, he's still quite a young prospect, only 19 years old. He's currently playing in the Swiss top division. Predominantly plays as a left winger, but can also play through the middle as well. It'll be quite an interesting transfer window, I think, this one coming up for Coventry, because if they've still got a decent lead at the top of the table going into January, the club will probably be backing themselves to get to the Premier League, and at that point you're thinking of signing players who not only can have an impact in the second half of this season in the Championship, but you're future planning and thinking which players are capable of stepping up to the top flight maybe. More strength and depth is something that Lampard will probably be after in the January window. Whether someone like Valera would come in and be able to make an instant impact or would be signed as a bit of a long-term investment, we'll have to wait and see. But there seems to be a bit of interest there. I think it's safe to say that Manchester United loanee Harry Amas has made a really positive impact while on loan at Sheffield Wednesday so far this season. He's getting plenty of first team action there, and he's made quite the impression there despite Wednesday sat bottom of the Championship and struggling to pick up points. Now, it's worth stressing that the initial loan deal that Amas joined Sheffield Wednesday on was only valid until the start of January, but talks have been taking place with Manchester United trying to get that loan deal extended until the end of the season. Now, this is something that a number of Championship clubs probably will be keeping an eye on, because if Wednesday aren't able to get that deal extended until the end of the season for whatever reason, you can bet a whole host of other Championship clubs would be willing to take him for the second half of the season on a loan deal. But it does seem like there is a bit of confidence within Sheffield Wednesday that they'll be able to reach an agreement with United. It's just a bit of a waiting game. It's been claimed that Derby County are willing to listen to offers for experienced defender Curtis Nelson in the January transfer window, this one coming from Football League World. Now, Nelson himself, obviously a very experienced defender at this level, but is coming off the back of a long injury layoff. As a result, he's not played any first team minutes for Derby so far this season. I think he has been on the bench for a couple of games recently, but for whatever reason doesn't appear to be part of John Eustace's long-term plans going forward. So whether or not a loan deal until the end of the season would work, or Derby are just willing to get him off the books permanently. Worth stressing that he is 32 years old and out of contract at the end of the season, so doesn't look likely he'll be offered a new deal. A move elsewhere in the Championship seems likely, or potentially a drop down to League One. Antonis Papadopoulos is currently being looked at by both Stoke City and Ipswich Town. He's a former Borussia Dortmund player, played a handful of games for the first team between 2021 and 2024, but has most recently been playing in Switzerland. He's 26 years old and primarily a centre half, but can also play in midfield as well as a holding midfielder. He's still got a year and a half left on his contract and is valued anywhere between sort of 2 to 3 million, it would seem. So let's wait and see if there's any movement on that come January. Experienced goalkeeper Essien Vassen has been linked with a move to Wrexham ahead of the January window. He's currently playing for Groningen, where he's impressed and potentially has a few clubs interested in January. Now, Wrexham being in the market for another goalkeeper is interesting. Obviously, they brought in Danny Ward over the summer, which got quite a lot of people talking. Ward went straight in as the number one, then got injured. Okonkwo's taken his place and I think has firmly established himself as the rightful number one once again. Wrexham's defensive record in recent months with Okonkwo in there has been absolutely fabulous. It's been the best in the Championship over these past few months. So you'd imagine any goalkeeper coming in at this stage would be to push him even further. I'd be very surprised if Wrexham are going to bring in a goalkeeper looking to replace him at this stage with how steady they've looked defensively. But with how busy Wrexham were over the summer, we expect them to do quite a bit of business in January as well, especially if they are on the precipice of the top 6. The club will want to do everything they can to backfill Parkinson, try and give them that extra edge to get into the top 6, because the league around that region of the table right now is looking so open, and a team like Wrexham, who do have the financial backing, definitely have the ability to properly go for it in the second half of the season, especially with a few more reinforcements. So he's the first link we've seen to Wrexham in recent weeks ahead of the January window, but no doubt we're going to get more of them over these next few weeks, and the closer to January we get. Should also mention as well, while we are discussing Wrexham, Cherif, another player that they have been linked with in the forward position. Predominantly plays as a centre forward, but can also operate on the left-hand side as well, so a fairly versatile forward. Only 18 years old, we've tended to see Wrexham going for these, high-profile experienced players throughout their rise up the footballing ladder, but these are the sort of smart investments that I think the club will start to make more of as time goes by. Now, Wrexham aren't alone in their interest in the youngster, who's currently playing for Angers in the French top division. You've also got the likes of Newcastle, Sunderland and Fulham who have registered an interest as well. The teenager scored 3 goals in 14 League One appearances so far this season and is supposedly valued at around about 17 million, so won't come cheap. Now, this next one isn't a specific transfer rumour, but we did get some interesting quotes from Portsmouth boss John Mousinho the other day, claiming that the club are looking for at least 3 to 6 new additions in the January window to hopefully get them out of the predicament that they currently find themselves in. They're sat in the relegation zone right now, 22nd in the table. They're the second lowest scoring side in the league, only in front of Sheffield Wednesday, and badly in need of reinforcements. Going off Mousinho's quotes, he seems to be fairly confident that they will get the players in the January window to go ahead and help them, and it seems like that will be a mix of loan targets and permanent ones. As of right now, we've not had any concrete links with Pompey and who they're looking at, but generally speaking, if I remember rightly, over the summer transfer window, Portsmouth were pretty good at keeping things under wraps and then only announcing a signing when they got it over the line. There were a few exceptions to that, but generally speaking, Pompey tend to be one of the clubs that do keep things quite close-knit. And the door has been opened for a potential departure for Cameron Archer in the January transfer window. Now, no concrete rumours around this at the moment, but he was left out of Southampton's matchday squad in their most recent championship fixture against Millwall. And after the game, Southampton boss Tonda Eckert confirmed that was because of a selection decision that he'd made, and it wasn't because Archer had picked up an injury or anything like that. Now, he'll probably still get a bit of game time between now and the January window opening because of how hectic this championship schedule is going to be. Whether those are just minutes off the bench or what, who knows. And if he scores a few goals between now and January, all could be rosy, but it certainly looks like Adam Armstrong is the guy for Southampton at the moment. Saints fans just have not seen the best of Cameron Archer. I really thought this would be the year he put it all together for them, because we've seen how good he can be in the championship with those loan spells with Middlesbrough and Preston. But if he's not going to get regular game time there, you'd imagine the door would be open for a January move, and if that is to be the case, I'd imagine a few championship clubs would be interested. Another player who could be open to leaving Southampton in January as well is Ronnie Edwards, who had a really good loan spell with QPR in the second half of last season. QPR were interested in bringing him back over the summer, but ultimately a deal didn't materialise, as he was part of Will Still's plans going forward. But all has changed at Southampton over these past few months, and since Tonda Eckert has taken the job at Southampton, Edwards has only played 4 minutes of championship football. So once again, in a similar vein to Archer, if that continues between now and the January window opening, you'd imagine QPR, some other clubs would be asking the question. But there you guys have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, if you've seen anything else going off around the championship, make sure to let me know about it in the comments down below. Like I say, we will be bringing back these videos much more regularly with the January transfer window right around the corner. It's going to get hectic, but if you want to stay up to date with all of the transfer rumours in the championship, this is your best place to go ahead and do so. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.